Wow, 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 wow. How about them Georgia Bulldogs going on the road at number one Texas and coming out of there with a 30-15 victory? I could not be more shocked and surprised at the Georgia team that I saw last night. What we saw last night, the Georgia Bulldogs took it up to a whole nother level intensity wise on the road at Texas. And from the very beginning of the game, those first couple of drives, I just saw in the players' eyes, they meant business on this road trip to Texas. They really did. They took the intensity up to a whole nother notch than they had been at the entire rest of the season. And there was nothing Texas could do. Texas could not match Georgia's intensity and physicality. Georgia wanted this game more. So if what we've got to do, I just don't understand how you can play five football games and then come out and look like a totally different team yesterday at Texas. I mean, if that's what it takes is the entire country picking against you and you falling back a few spots for Kirby Smart to get that out of you, then I'd rather stay like this. I like being like this and everybody picking against us and us playing like that. I like watching last night's football a hell of a lot better than I like watching the entire rest of the season, because that last night on the defensive side of the ball was an absolute thing of beauty. Seven sacks from the Georgia defense yesterday. I could not believe it. The Georgia defense played out of its mind yesterday. And you already know what's coming right now is, Texas was never really that good. Texas was overrated, because anytime Georgia is going into a game, the team's always going to beat Georgia, and Georgia never has any chance. And then when Georgia finally beats that team, everybody always says, that team wasn't actually any good anyways. That team was overrated, and Georgia still hasn't played anybody. Georgia has played the toughest schedule in the country to this point. We've played three teams as of yesterday that were in the top 10 and are 2-1. So hats off to the Georgia team. And if you watched my videos going into this game and the score prediction that I gave yesterday, I did not think Georgia was going to win this game. They just hadn't showed me anything. We had not played consistent football in our previous games, and Texas had. We had not looked good to this point in the season. Now, there was still a lot that we could do better in yesterday's games, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but nothing I saw from Georgia made me think that they could go on the road to Texas and pull this off yesterday. But for Kirby Smart to get this team ready and for them to come out and play like that, it just makes you wonder, where has that been the entire season? Where has that level of intensity been this entire season? Because those boys took it up a notch yesterday. I could just see it in their eyes from the very beginning, those first few drives. And let me tell you something else that helped that Georgia team. Going on the road to Kentucky, 7:30 at night was a big deal. Going on the road to Tuscaloosa, 7:30 at night with game day being there, was a big deal. That Texas crowd and stadium doesn't hold a candle to the Alabama fans in Bryant-Denny Stadium. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Bryant-Denny Stadium was totally off the chain. Deafening noise. Their fans were off the chain. Their stadium experienced everything way better than anything that Texas did. So that going into that Texas stadium yesterday, that was not a hostile environment compared to what we had faced at Alabama. No comparison. No comparison. That shit yesterday was easy compared to what we faced on the road at Bryant-Denny. And I said going, those first few drives of the game, just watching Texas, they did not look ready for us. They just could not match our intensity. They weren't executing. And once we got the jump on them, and that's what I said in my videos, let's make them play from behind. Let's take the fight to this team and see what happens then. And that's exactly what we did. We came out intense, locked in, ready to go. We meant business from the very beginning. We took the fight to them. We were the aggressor. We got on the board early, and we kept our foot on the gas. We played a complete game compared to what we've been doing, but we still left a lot of plays out there. But we got up on them early, and we stayed on them. That Georgia defense yesterday was suffocating, and there was just nothing Texas could do to match what we were doing. that defensive line and that defensive front and our pass rushers, Mykel Williams, Jalen Walker, Damon Wilson, turned it on yesterday. And it's about time. Seven sacks from the Georgia defense. And I could not be prouder of that defensive line. That was the area this season that I thought was going to be our biggest struggle, our biggest point of vulnerability. But now with Mykel Williams healthy, Warren Brinson healthy, and these guys getting back into the lineup and the younger guys getting some experience under their belt, this defensive line is turning it on at just the right time. And I do think that Texas is a good team. I don't think that Texas was overrated. I think Georgia sorry, I'm trying to get better from being sick. I've been sick all week. But anyways, I think that Texas is a good team. I just think that Georgia listened to everybody all week tell them how Texas was going to blow them out, about how Georgia could not play with Texas, could not match up with Texas, and Georgia came into their stadium and just wanted it more. Georgia felt disrespected, and Kirby Smart found a way to get the most out of his guys and have Georgia play their best game when it was needed most. And we still didn't play a complete football game. That's one thing that I take away from watching this game is, can you imagine if we didn't have the drop passes, if we didn't give them penalties in the field position, because they had done nothing on offense until we did the squib kick or onside kick or whatever happened with that. They had done absolutely nothing on offense, and that was the spark they needed to get started in the second half when we gave them the ball at midfield. And then we assist that first drive with penalties and face masks, giving them penalty yardage and stuff. But Texas did nothing organically on their own the entire night. The squib kick, where they got the ball at the 50-yard line, that jump-started their drive. Then a face mask extended that drive. They got a touchdown and a two-point conversion off of that drive. The next points that they got was gifted to them by the officials that called pass interference on Texas, on number 7 of Texas. And then so this was a pick down to the 9-yard line for Texas. But it got called back for pass interference. Now, I'm telling you, the pass interference, that was a bullshit call. It wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't pass interference. But the officials made the call on the field. So in that situation, if they get together and they pick up the flag before they make the call, then that is allowed. But they threw the flag. They called the pass interference penalty over the PA system. They walked off the penalty yardage. They set the ball. At that point, that's a non-reviewable call. So that call, even though it was a bad call, should have stood on the field. You can't pick up the flag at that point once you spot the ball and you call it over the PA system. And that was bullshit. That was bullshit. The officiating was god-awful in this game. That's nothing new if you're a Georgia fan to see horrible officiating. I mean, I'm used to it at this point. I go ahead and I expect it for the officiating to be bad. And I'm not saying like these officials are purposely out to get Georgia every single time. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. But you can't be a Georgia fan and have watched all of the games that I've watched and just feel like we've gotten a fair shake from the officials. A lot of the Alabama games come to mind. The offsides punt, man, I don't even want to go into that, but it's something that it just wasn't right yesterday. That wasn't right. The targetings weren't right. Like it just did not feel right as a Georgia fan. And I'm glad that we could overcome that. But yeah, that was bullshit. You cannot pick up the flag after you've walked off the penalty yardage and put the ball down. But then they throw on the beer cans, they huddle together, they change their mind, and then they take it back down to the 9. So I really don't want to get too much into that. Everybody's already talked about enough about that. But something's got to be done. I was happy for Kirby Smart getting on the officials' ass about that, but during the game, after the game, so I'm sure something will get done about that. But what else do I want to say about this game? The O-line from the very beginning, I thought, played an incredible game in pass protection. Even running the ball, like we looked a lot better running the ball tonight. I thought that we got away from that a little bit, and I wish that we wouldn't have, because ETN was averaging like 10 yards a carry, and Etienne's really grown on me. I still don't think, he's an elite running back or anything like that, but he's the best that we got at the time. And we should have gave him the ball more, in my opinion. He was my player of the game on offense, no doubt about it. 3 touchdowns, had a lot of big plays for us, really ran the ball hard. So I was super proud of Etienne, super happy for him. And he's got a big one coming up in 2 weeks. The whole team does, going down to Jacksonville for the Florida game to play his former team. He should have got the ball way more yesterday, especially with all the drops that we had at the wide receiver position. Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams played incredible yesterday. Those 2 guys earned some money yesterday against that Texas offensive line. That Texas offensive line is a veteran group. They're very good. They've been together a long time. A lot of those guys are going to get drafted. So Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams, I've been hard on Mykel Williams all season long. But finally, Mykel Williams comes through for Georgia, has 2 sacks, has a bunch of tackles, was a force to be reckoned with. Jalen Walker goes off, has 2 or 3 sacks of his own. Damon Wilson had a big game and is coming around. Dalen Everett forced a turnover and had 2 turnovers, a fumble recovery and an interception. Dalen Everett redeemed himself a little bit yesterday. I was happy to see that. Happy for Dalen Everett. He had some big time plays for us yesterday. But that Georgia defensive line is coming around at just the perfect time. That Damon Wilson, Ingram Dawkins, Jalen Walker, and Mykel Williams lineup, sprinkled in with some Christian Miller and Warren Brinson. Man, that mixture right there can do something. I mean, Texas was totally overmatched with what we were doing yesterday from a pass rush standpoint, and that's why I wanted to get up on them. Because once we got up on them, we knew they had to throw the ball. And then our pass rushers could just tee off on their quarterbacks. And they just had no answer for that, for our athleticism out on the edges. Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams played their ass off. I was so happy to see that yesterday. Mike Bobo, again, Mike Bobo calls a fantastic game. A fantastic game Mike Bobo called. The wide receivers dropping the ball thing is killing us, man. We really should have beat Texas by 30. We should have at least had 2 more touchdowns. I'm sorry, but James Coley, unless he's got 3 5-star wide receivers like inbound for Georgia, like ready to sign, dude, James Coley's got to go. Like this dropping the ball thing has gone on for way too long. Like the receivers should be doing nothing but catching balls from now to the Florida game. This is crazy, the amount of drops that Georgia has had. And it's everybody. Normally it's Arian Smith, but yesterday it was everybody but Arian Smith. It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, the drop passes. And Carson Beck throwing 3 interceptions is bad, but I've got to start wondering, like, how much of this is on Carson? Because you start off the game with 4 drops, and you got wide receivers dropping balls that hit him in the hands time and time again. Like, what's that going to do to your confidence? And you can't tell me these wide receivers are running the right route every single time, just the way that they're playing, man. Something's got to be done with our wide receivers. Like, this is crazy. This is crazy. Like, that group is just a liability for us. And we've got talent. That's the problem. Like, Dylan Bell's a talented player. Dom Lovett's a talented player. Arian Smith's a talented player. He's great when he catches the ball. It's when he drops it that's the problem. And that's all coaching. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. I've never liked James Coley. He's a good recruiter out of South Florida. That's just my opinion. I don't really like calling for people's jobs or anything like that, but your receivers can't catch the ball. This has been going on all season. It hasn't improved. It's gotten worse. So, fix it by the Florida game or after the season, man. He's got to go. He's got to go. But, yeah, shout out to Kirby Smart for getting his 100th win. Just a huge, huge, huge win on the road. Number 1, Texas. I couldn't be prouder of the team and happier for the team. Shout out to all the Georgia fans that went to the game, that were making noise and were louder than the Texas fans the entire game. You could hear those UGA chants from the first quarter all the way on to the fourth quarter. I was super happy to see that. Super happy for the fans, the players, the coaches. Finally, the Georgia fan base can somewhat was united after the game last night. That was good to see everybody getting along instead of being at each other's throats. And I got to say, the Disney Dogs were right on this one. for anybody that had hope and was saying that Georgia was going to be fine and Georgia was going to win the game, you guys were right this time. You guys were right. That's all I can say. I was wrong and y'all were right. But Georgia, they took it to a whole nother level yesterday. And it just makes me wonder, like, man, where was that level of intensity at in the other games? I mean, if we could have played like this all season, we'd be undefeated. So hopefully we can keep this momentum and this level of intensity up going forward. We've still got a bunch of big games left ahead. We've got so much we can do to improve and get better, starting with catching the balls that hit us in both hands. But the defense is turning it on at the right time. The pass rush is coming around at the right time. 7 sacks, a whole bunch of turnovers. Like, there is a lot to be optimistic about. Like, we just beat a number 1 Texas team on the road by 15 points, and we didn't even play a complete football game. We didn't play our best. We left points out there. We dropped passes. Like, there's so many areas we can continue to get better, and we dominated that game. Like, we really should have won that game by 30 points. So a lot to be hopeful about. I can't express enough. I could not be happier as a Georgia fan and prouder of the team. Like, that was a big deal. I do think Texas is for real. I think Texas is a good team. Now, normally what happens is when Georgia beats a number 1 team, they just fall apart. Georgia, they play people tough, man. You get banged up after you play Georgia. And usually when Georgia beats an undefeated team, they continue to lose. So we'll see what happens with Texas. But this is a huge deal, huge win for Georgia. I couldn't be prouder of them. I couldn't be happier that I was wrong. And I was wrong. Georgia went on the road and got it done. Dominated Texas from start to finish. Texas couldn't do anything besides what we gifted them and what the officials gifted them. Just a dominant performance by the Georgia Bulldogs. So I could not be happier this weekend. I rewatched that game 2 times and just a great performance by Georgia. Couldn't be happier to see Coach Smart get his 100th win and happier for all the fans that made that trip and made all that noise. So we got to continue to improve. We got to get better at catching the ball. Carson Beck's got to improve. We got a bye week, so it's back to fundamentals. And then we got to get ready for a hungry Florida Gators team that would love nothing more than to knock this Georgia team off and ruin our season. This Florida team took the ball charge to overtime and put a beat down on a Kentucky team that gave us everything that we could handle. So this Florida team isn't a guaranteed win anymore. This Florida team is going to come in scrappy and hungry, and they're going to give us everything that they got and try and knock us off and take what's ours. So we got to come into that game ready to go. We got players out for the targeting. That's not going to be good. So we got to be locked in going down to Jacksonville. We got to handle business and take care of our biggest rival, the Florida Gators, put them away, and then I believe it's on to Ole Miss on the road. So Georgia, continue to get better during your bye week. But after this Texas win, like, everything that we wanted to do is still in front of us. So I could not be happier this weekend as a Georgia fan. I'm so excited to see what the rest of the season holds and how much better this team can get. Because if we can start catching the balls that hit us in the hands and we can execute on offense, this team can really, really do something this season. That was a big win yesterday. Hope everybody enjoyed watching the game. I'm going to hop over to Facebook and do a live there. I'll catch you guys next Saturday. Thank you.